The marble floors of the Astrolix gleamed under the filtered light of the station's violet nebula, every surface polished to a mirror finish. Matthew Williams moved through the lobby with his usual measured stride, dark tie precisely knotted, gray-green eyes scanning everything with the quiet vigilance of a man who built this empire with his own hands. The Astrolix was his pride, the only human-owned luxury hotel on Nexus Station, a jewel of Earth's ingenuity amid the endless bustle of alien commerce. To him, it was proof that humanity could thrive out here, beyond its homeworld, without apology or compromise. Yet even as he nodded to a passing Centuran dignitary and accepted the deferential bow of a Vesperian maidservant, unease gnawed at the edges of his confidence. The quarterly financials had been troubling. Not overtly wrong, just off. Service charges that didn't line up with guest manifests. Inventory fluctuations that never balanced. He told himself it was accounting noise, the kind of irregularity that slipped through in an enterprise this large. But a man who prided himself on detail, who could spot a scuff mark on a marble tile from across the lobby, couldn't help but feel those numbers were mocking him. The lobby buzzed with the organized chaos he cultivated. Andorian security officers at discreet posts, bellhops guiding draconian traders toward their methane-rich suites, Plavian concierge charming guests with reptilian smiles. The ceiling soared high above, filled with flora imported from half a dozen worlds, their luminescent leaves shifting color in slow, mesmerizing patterns. It was a temple to his philosophy. Humans could master alien tastes and outdo them at their own game. Mr. Williams, Thax, his Andorian head of security, stepped in close, antennae twitching as he handed him a data tablet. The Centuran delegation confirmed their reservation. 30 suites. They expect the atmospheric adjustments complete before arrival. Of course, Matthew said smoothly, though his eyes lingered on the scrolling figures. They should have reassured him. Instead, the sensation deepened, that itch that something was being hidden just out of sight. He was about to retreat to his office when a light tug at his sleeve stopped him. Looking down, he found himself staring into the enormous sapphire eyes of a small alien girl. Her skin was a striking blue that shimmered faintly under the ambient lights. Her short hair neatly cut, her expression far too serious for her age. "Can I help you, little one?" Matthew crouched, smoothing his tie out of habit. "Are you lost?" The girl glanced around furtively before leaning close. Her voice was a whisper nearly drowned by the lobby's hum. "Someone's stealing from you." Matthew blinked, caught between amusement and surprise. "What did you say?" "Your alien staff. They're taking things. Money. Resources." Her eyes locked on his with unnerving intensity. A laugh rose unbidden, too sharp at the edges. "That's quite an imagination you have." He patted her shoulder gently, already searching the crowd for her parents. "Where are you supposed to be, HM?" But the girl crossed her small arms, metallic bracelets catching the light. "I'm not imagining it. I've seen the numbers. They don't add up." Before he could respond, a Plavian concierge hurried over, reptilian features tight with apology. "Kara, there you are." "My niece wandered off." "No problem," Matthew said smoothly, rising to his full height. "She's sharp. You should be proud." As the Plavian led her away, the girl turned her head back, lips forming silent words only he could see. "Check your accounts." Matthew stood rooted as the lobby swirled on around him, alien voices rising and falling like waves. He adjusted his tie again, though it no longer sat quite right. For the first time in years, the ground beneath his perfectly polished hotel felt less like marble and more like thin glass ready to crack at the wrong pressure dot. Her warning shouldn't have mattered. A child's whisper against the tide of business. Yet as he made his way to the elevators, every number in those financial reports flared in his mind like neon. Pride told him he had everything under control. But doubt, small and insistent, had already slipped through the cracks. That night, Matthew would pour whiskey into a glass that cost more than most guests' weekly stay. He would stare at glowing columns of figures until his temples ached. And he would hear her voice, again and again, echoing in the back of his mind. Someone stealing from you. Morning light on Nexus Station was a manufactured illusion. Soft gold radiance bleeding through polarized panels that lined the upper walls of the Astrolix lobby. To the guests, it gave the sense of a sunrise, something that didn't exist this far from any real sky. For Matthew Williams, it was just another reminder of how much of his life depended on appearances. He hadn't slept. The child's whisper had burrowed into him, keeping him pacing the penthouse floor until he finally surrendered to the pull of his office console. Hours of combing through accounts, inventories, and service logs had left his eyes bloodshot, his jaw clenched tight. The more he dug, the less he could deny it. Inconsistencies everywhere. Not gaping holes, not obvious fraud, but tiny cut skimming, siphoning, deliberate manipulation so carefully buried that he'd almost admired it. Almost by dawn, Matthew's pride had curdled into fury. His entire brand, his identity, was built on the idea that humans could match anyone, anywhere. He had dared to plant a flag in alien-dominated hospitality, and now it seemed he'd been played for a fool under his own roof. That he could not tolerate. At 9 sharp, the summons went out. By 10, the grand ballroom was filled wall to wall with every alien employee on his payroll. Andorians in their crisp security uniforms, Plavians with their polished scales glinting under the chandeliers, Vesperians towering over the crowd with their insectoid limbs folded tight. Hundreds of eyes, multifaceted or otherwise, fixed on him. Matthew stood on the stage at the front, perfectly tailored suit immaculate, despite the sleepless night. The microphone amplified his voice until it echoed like judgment. In the vast chamber, "I've discovered systematic theft within the Astrolix," he said without preamble. His words landed like a thunderclap. Murmurs spread instantly through the crowd, the rustle of disbelief, fear, outrage. He let it build before cutting it off with a raised hand. Rather than conduct a drawn-out investigation that will only waste more time and allow the guilty to hide, "I've made a decision." His gaze swept across them, steady, unflinching, though his heart hammered beneath his tie. "You're all fired." Effective immediately. The eruption was immediate, voices layered over voices, some shouting protests in alien tongues, others pleading, some stunned into silence. A Plavian concierge he recognized next. One of the best with high-value clients stepped forward, scales flaring in agitation. "Mr. Williams, surely you don't mean all of us. Many here have served faithfully for years." Matthew's jaw tightened. "I mean exactly what I said. You will receive 1 week's severance. Security will escort you to collect your belongings. The premises must be clear within 2 hours." Thax, his Andorian head of security, looked stricken as he relayed the order. Even his antennae drooped as he began ushering people out. Matthew caught flickers of expression in the crowd: confusion, hurt, raw fear, but also something else. Guilt. Yes, a handful of faces darted their eyes away, nervous, terrified. Those were the ones who mattered. If he had to burn the field to clear out the weeds, so be it. But as the ballroom emptied, a hollowness settled in his chest. This wasn't victory. It was scorched earth. By mid-afternoon, the hotel descended into bedlam. With no staff to manage operations, luggage piled unattended near the doors, automated check-in terminals blinked error codes, and environmental systems faltered between freezing gusts and suffocating heat. Matthew found himself behind the reception desk, sleeves rolled up, hair mussed from hours of dragging his hands through it. He'd handed out drink vouchers, comped room upgrades, anything to pacify furious guests. It wasn't enough. An irate draconian ambassador hissed his displeasure inches from Matthew's face. Unacceptable. My delegation requires compounds only your chef was certified to prepare. We will be checking out immediately. 15 sweets gone in a breath. 15 premium rate sweets. When the ambassador stormed off, Matthew leaned against the counter, fighting the urge to slam his fist down. This was not what competence looked like. This was not the Astrolux. You look like you could use some help. The voice came smooth and melodic, tinged with wry amusement. Matthew lifted his gaze, and for a moment forgot to breathe. She stood poised and radiant, skin the same shimmering blue as the child's, but with darker hair framing high cheekbones and lips curved in a knowing smile. Business attire clung to her lithe form, silver accents catching the failing light of the lobby. "I'm Linda," she said, extending a hand. "And you've already met my daughter." As Matthew straightened, something deep inside him shifted. The whisper in the lobby had become a storm, and this woman was its center. Matthew clasped her hand, feeling that faint electric tingle at her touch, a physiological quirk of her species that made his skin prickle. Linda's grip was firm, deliberate, and it told him as much about her as any introduction could. She wasn't here by accident. "You've already met my daughter," she repeated, eyes like sapphires fixed on his, with an intensity that belied the light curve of her smile. "Enough of an impression that you fired your entire staff." Her tone was almost playful, but Matthew flinched all the same. He prided himself on control, yet the decision already gnawed at him, its fallout unfolding with every frustrated guest and every complaint piling into his inbox. He forced himself upright, straightening his tie, as if posture alone could shore up authority. "I found evidence," he said, defensive even to his own ears, supporting her claim. "Maybe I was." Hasty. Linda's laugh chimed through the air like glass struck by wind. "Hasty?" She gestured to the chaos of the lobby guests, bickering with malfunctioning kiosks, a broken service drone sputtering against the marble floor, luggage piled like barricades near the doors. "You've single-handedly created the largest labor crisis Nexus Station has seen in a decade. The workers' union has already filed a complaint with the station council." Matthew groaned. "The council?" Exactly what he didn't need. "What do you need?" Linda continued, leaning forward across the reception counter so that her presence filled his space. "Is someone who understands financial forensics and alien labor law." She produced a card from inside her jacket. The holographic lettering shimmered in rotating languages. Linda Nix, Interstellar Financial Investigator, specializing in multi-species fraud and embezzlement. Matthew took the card, turning it over. He dealt with enough cons in his time to know when credentials were fabricated. These felt real, which made him more suspicious, not less. "Why help me?" His eyes narrowed. "For all I know, you're part of whatever's bleeding me dry." Linda's eyes flashed, bright as polished stone under light. "First, I don't steal. I catch thieves. Second, my daughter has developed an inexplicable interest in you, and I've learned not to ignore her instincts." She leaned even closer, her voice softening, dropping just for him. "And third, I find humans intriguing." The way she said it made Matthew's breath falter. Not curiosity interest, dangerous interest. He tried to hide the warmth that rose in his chest by focusing back on her words. "You said you catch thieves. So you believe me?" "I believe you're being robbed, but not by a few opportunistic staff members." She tapped the card against the counter for emphasis. "This is organized. Someone skilled. Your records aren't sloppy mistakes. They're deliberate misdirection. And if I'm right, the same people targeting you have hit at least 3 other stations in this sector." Matthew exhaled slowly, feeling the ground tilt under him again. "You think it's bigger than my hotel?" Linda nodded. Much bigger. But Astrolix might be the break I've been waiting for. Before he could reply, a crash split the air shouts rising from the bar, glass shattering against the marble floor. Matthew winced, already moving toward the commotion. Yes, you should deal with that, Linda said, amusement flickering in her voice. Meanwhile, I'll start reviewing your records. Assuming, of course, you want my help. Matthew paused mid-stride, torn between duty to his hotel and the strange pull of this woman, whose gaze seemed to strip away layers of his resolve. For the first time since the girl's whisper the night before, he felt the possibility of more than chaos. A glimmer of control. A spark of something unexpected. Yes, he said finally. I want your help. My office is on the top floor. Linda's lips curved into that dangerous smile again. Already taken care of. She held up a security pass. Kira made a copy of your credentials yesterday while you were distracted, Matthew sputtered. She what? Don't worry, Linda said smoothly. She only uses her talents for good. Usually. She slipped the pass back into her jacket and moved toward the elevator with the poise of someone already in command. Matthew watched her go, aware of the weight of every guest's eyes on him, every problem unraveling around him. And yet, what burned in his mind wasn't the crisis at the bar or the financial wreckage looming over his empire. It was the shimmer of blue skin, disappearing behind the elevator doors, and the dangerous thought that perhaps the girl hadn't just warned him. She'd set his entire life on fire. The elevator doors hissed open to Matthew's penthouse office, and for once, the sanctuary of polished wood and earth memorabilia felt compromised. He had built the space to be a refuge walls lined with old books, a globe of earth he'd had shipped at obscene expense, warm leather and steel accents. Yet now the office hummed with alien presence. Linda's measured steps, Kira's small fingers dancing across his console, holographic data spilling into the air in streams of numbers and codes. This isn't sloppy, Linda murmured, tilting her head as she scrolled through a set of fragmented transactions. The iridescent patterns along her neck caught the soft lighting, shifting with her concentration. This is precise. See here? Transfers routed through dummy accounts, broken into increments just below regulatory triggers. Whoever's behind this knows exactly how to stay invisible. Matthew leaned over her shoulder, eyes narrowing at the figures. His jaw tightened. And I missed it. All of it. You trusted what was in front of you, Linda said, glancing at him sidelong. Humans excel at trust. It's why your species thrives in diplomacy. But it makes you vulnerable to patterns hidden in plain sight. He bristled. Pride was both armor and flaw. Astrolix is my house. I know every wall, every circuit, every maintenance tunnel. Kira cut in, smirking as she zoomed the display. Because someone's been using them to plant extra surveillance feeds. Matthew's head snapped toward the hologram. At first, it looked like harmless energy fluctuations. Then he saw it. Small, steady power draws, unregistered on his official schematics. Hidden cameras. How many? His voice came out hard. Kira's small shoulders lifted in a shrug too casual for a 7-year-old. A dozen at least. One in here. She tapped the screen, and an image bloomed in the air, his own office from a high angle. The timestamp read 3 days ago. Matthew watched himself on the recording, seated across from Voren, his finance manager. The meeting ended, he left. Moments later, Voren slipped back inside, straight to the terminal. His terminal. Using Matthew's access codes. That bastard, Matthew growled, fists clenching. He was feeding them everything. Wait, Linda said sharply. There's more. The footage shifted to another day. Voren again, but this time meeting with someone else. A tall, gaunt figure with gray skin stretched taut over elongated features. The alien's eyes glowed faintly, cold as a winter star. "Enhance," Linda commanded, her tone leaving no room for debate. Kira pinched the image larger. The face came into focus. Linda's expression hardened, every trace of amusement gone. "Counselor Drex." Matthew blinked. "Head of station security? That Drex?" "The same," Linda said grimly. "I've suspected him of orchestrating theft rings before, but never had proof. Until now." Before Matthew could reply, the lights overhead flickered, then died. The office plunged into shadow, save for the faint red glow of emergency strips along the floor. "That's not Kira, is it?" he asked, already knowing the answer. "No." Linda's voice was quiet, sharp with urgency. "That's them. They know we've found their cameras." A low vibration shook the walls, followed by the muffled boom of a distant explosion. Matthew's stomach twisted. He knew the layout of his hotel, like his own skin. "That direction, the east wing, 3rd floor. The server room," he whispered. "They're burning evidence." Linda pulled a small data spike from her pocket and held it up. "Not all of it. I copied everything while Kira was showing us." Basic investigator's instinct. Despite the danger, admiration surged through Matthew. "You're remarkable." "I'm thorough," she corrected, though her lips curved faintly. Another explosion rumbled closer, rattling the books on his shelves. Matthew crossed to the wall panel, flicking on his private power reserves. The lights hummed back, soft and steady, bathing the room in blue. "Independent systems," he explained, more to ground himself than her. "Power, air, comes." "I thought it was paranoia." "Prudence," Linda countered, scanning the room. "But paranoia would serve you well right now. Drex won't stop at destroying data. Once he realizes we've seen the recordings, he'll come for us," Matthew finished. His pulse quickened, not just from fear, but from the weight of the woman beside him, radiant in the emergency glow, eyes alive with fierce resolve. For the first time since Kira tugged his sleeve in the lobby, Matthew understood. This wasn't just about theft. It was about survival. And the walls of the Astrolix, once his fortress, had become a battlefield. The emergency stairwell stank of ozone and scorched wiring, each step ringing with the faint metallic echo of a building under siege. Matthew led the way down, pulse pistol drawn, the pale glow of the emergency strips casting long, restless shadows. Linda followed close behind, her movements lithe, silent, a blade hidden in her hand that shimmered faintly in the dim light. Every so often, she tilted her head as if listening to something just beneath the range of human hearing. "She's alive," Linda whispered, as though answering an unspoken question. "Kira's signal is still active." "She's moving." Matthew glanced back at her, his chest tightening at the calm conviction in her voice. "Where?" "Auxiliary server room. Level 6, of course." Smart girl. That wing had its own power source and shielding perfect for hiding if you knew how to slip inside. But if Kira could find it, so could their enemy. They descended in silence, broken only when a group of panicked guests barreled past, shouting in a dozen languages. Matthew directed them toward a secure lounge with the steady authority of a man who refused to show fear. Once they were gone, Linda's eyes flicked to him, bright even in the gloom. "You lied to them," she observed. "There are no evacuation shuttles prepped. They'll be safer locked behind reinforced doors than wandering the halls," Matthew said without apology. "Sometimes leadership means lying well." Her lips twitched in something that was almost a smile. Pragmatic. Another curious human trait. By the time they reached level 6, the main corridor was blocked with rubble from a collapsed ceiling, smoke and sparks rising in angry plumes. Matthew pressed his palm against what looked like a blank wall, and a hidden panel slid open to reveal a maintenance tunnel. He ducked inside, weapon raised, the cramped passage forcing them to move in single file. You're full of surprises, Linda murmured. A good manager knows every inch of his property. Here I thought you were just another human clinging to tradition. After what we shared upstairs, he muttered over his shoulder. I think you can call me Matthew. The pause that followed was brief but heavy, charged with meaning. Then Linda's voice, softer than before. Indeed. And I think we're past formality. The tunnel spat them out into a vented grate overlooking the auxiliary server room. Below, a sea of holographic screens flickered, casting ghostly light over racks of machinery and the small figure seated cross-legged on the floor, tablet glowing in her hands. Kira, standing over her, was a tall, gaunt shape Matthew recognized instantly from the footage. Counselor Drex, his elongated features twisted into something resembling a smile, though it chilled more than it reassured. 2 armed guards flanked him, weapons gleaming. You're a clever little hybrid, Drex said, voice smooth as oil. But you've accessed files that don't concern you. They concern my mother, Kira shot back, defiance burning in her eyes. And Mr. Williams, you've been stealing from all of them. Not stealing, Drex corrected, spreading his long fingers in mock patience. Redistributing resources. Information is power, and power belongs to those who know how to wield it. He gestured, and one of the guards stepped toward her. Secure the tablet. Linda's muscles tensed beside Matthew. He caught her eye, and in that instant, no words were needed. Their connection born of danger, sharpened by trust, spoke louder than speech. She gave the faintest nod, hand flicking 3 fingers, then 2. Then 1. Matthew kicked the grate free and dropped like a hammer into the room. Pulse pistol already spitting blue fire. The first guard went down hard, a non-lethal blast cracking against his chest. Linda followed a heartbeat later, flipping through the air with a predator's grace, energy blades snapping alive in her hand as she landed between Drex and Kira. Step away from my daughter, she commanded, her voice low and deadly calm. Drex's face contorted with rage. This is station business. No, Matthew cut in, weapon trained on the second guard. This is your theft ring. And we've got the proof. You've seen nothing, Drex snarled, though a flicker of unease crossed his features. Too late, Kira said sweetly, holding up her tablet. A progress bar glowed across the screen. I've already started uploading everything. Drex's composure cracked. What upload? Where? Everywhere, she said, grinning with almost feral delight. Station security, the Earth Embassy, Commerce Commission, and the public news feeds. Can't stop it now. Matthew allowed himself the barest smile. Smart kid you've got there, he said to Linda. Half human, she replied, pride threading her voice. Resourcefulness runs in the blood. Drex lunged, but Matthew was faster. 1 sharp shot to the shoulder spun the counselor into a server rack, sparks flying as he crashed to the ground. The second guard froze under Matthew's aim, hands raised. Bound and fuming, Drex spat through bared teeth. You think this ends with me? I have all eyes. I'll bury you all. Linda pressed the humming edge of her blade an inch from his throat. Not if the truth buries you first. Kira rose from the floor, clutching her tablet like a weapon of her own, eyes shining with defiance. For the first time since this ordeal began, Matthew felt the tide shift. They weren't fighting for survival anymore. They were taking the fight to the enemy. And in that ruined server room, amid smoke and sparks, he knew this was only the beginning. Smoke clung to the air like a shroud, the auxiliary server room strobing with the flicker of failing lights. Drex sat slumped against a rack, wrists bound with security ties Matthew had pulled from his belt. The counselor's gray eyes burned with venom, but Matthew ignored the glare, focusing instead on the child at the center of the room. Kira hunched over her tablet, tiny fingers flying across the holographic keys. A progress bar crawled forward, pulsing green. 70% complete, she reported, her voice steady despite the chaos. "But the system's fighting me. Drex's people are trying to jam the signal." Another boom reverberated through the building. Dust rained from the ceiling, settling on Linda's indigo jacket as she paced, blade still humming in her hand. Her gaze flicked to Matthew. "They'll cut power next. And once this server wing goes dark, her transmission dies." "They won't just cut power," Drex hissed, lips curling. "They'll erase every trace of you. Witnesses don't survive syndicate business." Matthew hauled him upright by the collar. "Shut up," his pulse pistol pressed against Drex's ribs for emphasis. But Linda's words gnawed at him. If the upload failed now, everything they'd risked, the recordings, the proof, the guest's safety, would be wasted. Kira's brow furrowed, her blue skin glowing faintly under the strain. "Battery won't last much longer either," she admitted. "If we don't finish this soon, I lose the uplink." Matthew made a decision, fast and hard, the way he always had. "We split." Linda stopped pacing, eyes narrowing. "Splitting up is tactically unsound." "It's our best shot," Matthew countered. "I'll drag Drex to the station security office. There's a dedicated emergency transmitter there. If the power holds, it'll carry the signal through. You and Kira head to the main distribution node on level 3. Restore the grid, keep the channels open. Without power, none of this matters." "No." Linda's voice was sharp, maternal instincts sparking through every syllable. "I don't leave her side in the middle of a firefight." Matthew stepped closer, lowering his pistol but not his gaze. "You trust her with me?" The air between them thickened, the memory of their earlier closeness rising unbidden, the warmth of her skin against his still lingering in his mind. She wanted to say no. He could see it in the tension along her jaw, in the flicker of her iridescent patterns. But trust wasn't a word she used lightly. Finally, she exhaled. "You're asking for a lot. I'm asking you to trust me," Matthew said softly, fiercely. "I'll protect what matters." For a heartbeat, silence held. Then she moved, fast and sure, her hand gripping the back of his neck, pulling him down into a kiss that seared through the haze of smoke and static. It was fierce, urgent, full of a promise that transcended words. When she pulled away, her eyes shone with fire. "That," she whispered against his lips, "is a Nixian promise. Fulfill your mission and return, and there will be more." Matthew's grin was grim, fueled by adrenaline and something deeper. "That's what I call motivation." Kira, unfazed, looked up from her tablet. "Your pheromone signatures just synchronized," she noted with scientific detachment. "I approve this pairing." Both adults turned to her, startled, but she was already back to typing. Linda's cheeks darkened with a shimmer Matthew was beginning to recognize as her version of a blush. "Not the time." "Little one," Linda muttered, sheathing her blade. Level 3, then. Matthew shoved Drex forward, binding tighter around his wrists, ignoring the alien's low, mocking laugh. "You think splitting up will save you?" Drex sneered. "It'll doom you faster." "This station runs on my allies." Matthew's grip tightened. "Funny thing about allies, counselor. They scatter fast when the evidence goes public." Another explosion shook the structure, closer this time. The lights dimmed and flared weakly back. "Go," Matthew ordered, meeting Linda's eyes one last time. No hesitation, no doubt. Just a bond forged in fire. She nodded, every movement precise, protective hand guiding her daughter out of the room and into the smoke-filled corridor. Matthew dragged, Drex in the opposite direction, pulse pistol steady, each step carrying them closer to the heart of the station's security wing. For the first time in hours, despite the danger, despite the odds, he felt the tide beginning to turn. Not because he was certain of survival, but because he wasn't fighting alone. About 2 weeks later, the Astrolix lobby gleamed again. The scorch marks from explosions had been scrubbed away, shattered marble replaced with seamless new tiles, and the air carried the faint perfume of imported flora instead of smoke and ozone. Guests bustled through the grand hall as if nothing had happened, but Matthew Williams felt every repaired surface like a scar beneath his fingertips. The station called it the Astrolix affair. Counselor Drex's arrest had rocked Nexus politics. His name and network had been plastered across news feeds from here to the rim. Some of his allies tried to deny involvement, but Kira's broadcast had been too thorough, her protocol too clever. The evidence lived in too many places now to bury. Matthew stood by the reception desk, gray-green eyes sweeping the lobby with a mix of pride and regret. About 60% of his original staff had returned after investigators cleared them of wrongdoing. Others had moved on, too wounded by the mass firing to forgive, even with apologies and restitution. He had to live with that. He had been hasty, reckless, unhuman. Some whispered, but rebuilding meant admitting mistakes. That, too, was part of leadership. Mr. Williams, next the Plavian concierge, approached with his nervous dignity. His scales caught the lobby lights as he bowed slightly. "Thank you again for rehiring me. I swear I had no knowledge of Drex's scheme." Matthew clapped him on the shoulder, firm and warm. "The investigation cleared you, and no one makes Centron guests feel welcome the way you do. You belong here, Nex." The Plavian's eyes brightened. He bowed again and returned to his post, tail swaying with relief. Watching him go, Matthew felt something loosen in his chest. He had nearly burned it all down. But Astrolix was alive again, stronger, tempered. The main doors slid open. Linda strode in, a blaze of blue against the stark white of her tailored jacket. Beside her, Kira wore a miniature blazer and pleated skirt and embassy school uniform, though she scowled at the tie. "I still don't understand why humans dress children this way," Kira complained as they crossed the lobby. "The fabric restricts optimal motion patterns. It's called tradition," Linda explained with patient amusement. "And if you want to attend human classes, you'll respect it." "Humans are weird," Kira muttered, though her sapphire eyes sparkled. Matthew grinned as they reached him. "We prefer eccentric." He bent slightly, lowering his voice to Kira's level. "And how do I rate on your human scale today?" She considered, lips pursed in mock serious thought. "You're in the upper percentile. Your genetic material remains desirable." Her gaze darted to Linda, who rolled her eyes. "And you make Mother produce optimal neurochemicals. Also," she leaned closer, "conspiratorial, your pancakes are superior." Matthew laughed, warmth flooding him in a way no ledger balance ever had. High praise indeed. Upstairs, he led them into the penthouse. It was no longer his bachelor fortress. Child-sized workstations gleamed with advanced tech, balanced against shelves of Earth books. Softer furnishings mingled with artifacts from Linda's world. A place built not for one man, but for something larger. "You've been busy," Linda murmured, her iridescent patterns flickering as she took it all in. "It's for us," Matthew admitted, his voice quiet but steady. "I know your species doesn't form attachments easily, but I'm not asking for forever, not yet. I'm asking for a partnership, professional and personal. Astrolix needs you. I need you." For a moment she said nothing. Then she stepped close, her hand against his cheek, warm and faintly electric. "There's a misconception about my people. We don't bond easily. But when we do," her eyes searched his, bright and unyielding, "those bonds can last lifetimes." Matthew swallowed, heart thudding. "And am I compatible?" Her lips curved in the faintest smile. "Remarkably so. Humans leap before they look. My people call it reckless. I call it inspiring. Their kiss was tender this time, deliberate, not born of adrenaline, but of choice." When they parted, Kira stood by the balcony door, arms crossed, watching with clinical fascination. Your attraction indicators are at peak efficiency, she announced. I approve this pairing. Linda sighed. Children, Matthew chuckled, slipping an arm around Linda's waist. Then it settled. You're staying. All of you. We'll make this work, the hotel. This partnership, this. Family. That night, they stood on the balcony together, nebula light washing over them in purple and gold. Linda leaned against his shoulder, her hair brushing his jaw. When Kira first warned you, she said softly, I told her to leave it alone. Not our problem. But she said something I couldn't ignore. What? Matthew asked, holding her closer against the station's artificial chill. Linda's voice lowered. But he's human, Mother. Humans help, even when there's nothing to gain. Matthew smiled, gaze on the swirling stars. Smart kid. She gets that from both sides, Linda replied, then hesitated, her tone shifting. Though there's something you should know about those sides. Matthew turned, catching the sudden seriousness in her eyes. Kira's father was human, Linda said quietly. A man who passed through our colony. A man I thought I understood. But the files Kira pulled from your servers, they suggest Drex may have twisted that story. Altered records. Hidden something about him. Her iridescence dimmed, as though shadow passed across her skin. I don't know the whole truth yet. But whatever it is, it connects us more deeply than chance. Matthew held her gaze, steady as stone. Then we'll find out, together. Below, Kira's voice rang out from the workstation. I've upgraded the security grid. No one will steal from you again, Matthew. Matthew laughed, brushing a kiss across Linda's temple. Someone stealing from you, the alien girl had whispered. She'd been right. But what he'd gained an ally, a family, a bond that defied species, was worth more than anything that had been taken.